This is the breather tube from a 2011 to 2014 Mustang V6. Now you can see right here it says MAFS. That means mass airflow sensor. Okay, so this is the mass airflow sensor side. This side goes into the throttle body. It's got a 3-inch hole that goes all the way through. That's plenty of flow, except for, what in the world is this cancerous growth that we have right here? What is that for? You do some research, that stuff is put there just for the purpose of making the intake quieter. I can only imagine, because of those huge holes in there, and I don't know whether or not you can actually see that, but there's huge holes that go out to each one of these little compartments. And I can only imagine the kind of turbulence that would be made by this intake. They sell an aftermarket one, sort of eliminates all that stuff, but I don't see any sense in paying over $100 for a piece of pipe that is from, that's probably just a little bit over a foot long. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to modify this one. Here we go. Now the first step to doing this, and working with any plastic, is the first thing you got to do. Turn it over. If you look real close, you got to know about what kind of material it is that you're working with. You'll see right here, PP, and then in parentheses you see GF plus P, and then close parentheses 30. You plug that into Google search. Whenever you do, it'll come up that this is polypropylene, and all this coating over here basically means that it is a reinforced fiber that's inside of it that adds stability and strength to this polypropylene. So we have to have a similar type of material to work with in order to eliminate all this stuff. The good thing about it is we're cutting this whole section, this whole front section right here off of it, and that will give us plenty of material to start to use to try to fill in these big gaping holes that we're going to make. I'm going to try my hand at doing a little bit of plastic welding. See what happens. Alright, so first item of business. We got to get this thing cut off. Hacksaw. And just like that, she's off. Stuck out a bunch we got to clean up. Nevertheless, we're definitely at a good start. After we get finished with sawing off the big chunks, we got to flatten all this down. Now you can see a little bit better now down through the hole. Great big old gaping holes through there. Oh, I don't even think this thing would flow worth a Dutch wiggle. Can't do nothing but help it. So we're going to give it a shot. Something that helps out an awful lot. Smoothing down those edges. And these things, I got this from Harbor Freight. There it is, Chicago Lake Power Tools. We're going to have to make some plugs to go on that big hole, that small hole, and this big hole here. Just to give you a little bit of a warning, I ran into this with the chisel. This stuff is relatively strong, but it is also brittle, and it will pop loose. Not to worry, we can weld that up and make it look nice, but that's something to be aware of. Okay, we're going to do some measurements now, because we want to be somewhat precise on this. We don't want this to look like a train wreck. 2 inches, 1.5 inches, and this probably, I'm going to say, about 1/2 inch, 9/16, something like that. You'll notice that I left a little bit of a lip on this, and that is to give me some material to bond to. All right, before I can fit a plug in here, I don't want to fit a flat plug. See, this thing's got a curvature to it. So I want to take some of the material from the piece that I cut off and make a curvature that will fit in these holes. Stay with the cylindrical form of this to make sure that the flow is the best that it possibly can be. It's kind of the same principle as exhaust. You don't want crushed bend in the performance application because it obstructs the flow. What you really would much rather have is a mandrel bend. So that's the principle here. Of course, now there's a difference between sucking and blowing, and the nature of the two. All right, there's my plug for the big hole. It's going to be big enough, I'm sure. Cut it out of this section here. Had to kind of get around the curve, but we got to get it round now, or excuse me, rather flat. Round will come later, but we need to get this flat. See, it's got that L shape to it. We're gonna have to flatten that out. And the way we're gonna do that is with good old heat gun. Okay, we have old nasty looking heat gun. We have this piece, and we have this piece of plywood. Now this piece of plywood is there for the purpose of mashing this down once we get it hot. Okay, that's the purpose of it. Get it as flat as possible. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to get another piece and sort of sandwich the two in between. Okay, start with the low setting. This is really thick, so in order to ensure that you don't compromise the integrity of it, you're going to have to go really slow. Really, really slow. Now, you should start smelling it here before too long. I'm going to heat it a little bit on this side. And fill of it. Okay, we'll definitely get warm. Just flip it over. Now start heating it from the other side. And doing that to ensure that the heat penetrates very, very well, very deep. You want a good, deep penetration of the heat. It's in the middle. The outside edges will get hot before the middle does. The middle, where you want to try to concentrate your heat. Alright, we're definitely getting somewhere. You can see the difference in the coloration of the plastic. Alright, now let's give that a shot. Flip it over. Press. Oh yeah. We're going to leave it that way for a little while. Press down. And then we will look and see what we got. Alright. We definitely made some progress. You can see there's still a little bit of a bump there. Not so concerned about that right now. Now we're wanting to try to obtain the curvature of this pipe. Okay? So what we're going to do is try to find an area on this pipe that will somewhat match the curvature that we're wanting and press it against that specific piece once we get it good and hot. But now we want a little bit more of an even heat to it. This is the piece that I heated up, and I curved it by sticking it to the side over here. On the other side is closest bend that matches this bend. I want to try to get it to where I can fit it in there and it will stay sort of sprung in there, you know what I'm saying? There it is. Now I'm going to melt these outside edges to accommodate that, and it should make an almost, an almost seamless inside curvature. I went ahead and burnt this in. I do want to show you though the little instrument that I'm using, and it looks plumb crazy, I know, but what I done was took a piece of 14-2 wire and just a short piece of it, and that's probably the reason why it's all kinked up and I know it don't look really good. But I bent a loop in it and I hammered it out to where it has a nice little flat end on it. This used to belong to my dad. It's a Weller soldering gun. But it melted in just fine, which it looks a little bit rough. I want to clean it up a little bit more, probably add a little bit more filler material, and then sand it all down with my Dremel. But here's the ultimate test, okay? The forces that are going to be acting on this are going to be sucking in. So this plug, if it has any weak points in it at all, it's going to want to go inward. So I'm here with my thumb, and I'm squeezing everything I got in my hand and grip. And that's not coming in there. It's not popping in. I did try two hands before I turned the camera on, and both thumbs I could not get that to go back in. So But the inside, let's see if I can get in maybe some better light. You can tell that there's a plug there, but it is closed off and almost seamless. Well, I ain't gonna say seamless. It's at the same depth as the inside walls, and that is the most important thing. Whenever you're talking about flow, you really want the slickest inside as slickest inside possible, within reason. It's not as important on the intake as what it is on the exhaust. The exhaust needs to be slick. I mean, really, really, really slick. But the intake doesn't have to be all that slick, but it is good that you don't have any abnormalities in the flow pattern. Okay, sort of show you what I'm doing here. I've already tacked one side in. You can see that over here. And I heat up this bottom layer. That's the key to it all. And then I'm getting some of this wall here that I left, specifically for the purpose of tying this all in together and melting it into the area that I just heated up on the bottom. Mix it up real good. Hope you can see that. But I'm mixing that up real good and then flatten it out. Now the purpose of what I'm doing right now, I'm not worried about cosmetics. I'm worried about a bond. Heating up this bottom layer, take a little bit from this outside layer, and it takes a little while for it to set up. So you got a little while where you can melt this outside layer and pull it in. But that's what I'm doing, just so you know. Like I said, afterwards I can go back and worry about looks and cosmetics and everything. I'm really right now worried more about filling the gap. Functionality is the key. Now I do have a gap all the way around. I found that it's actually a little bit better to have a little bit of a gap, that the hole's a little bit bigger than the plug I'm putting in it. That way I have the ability to melt it in. Alright, there it is, all closed in. I smoothed it out pretty good with my soldering gun, but I'm working on it now with a sanding sponge. It does pretty good whenever you're wanting to try to meet certain contours. It's pretty rough, so you don't want to, I would not use this on anything that I wanted a real good finish on. But I just want this to be somewhat smooth. Alright, so here is my finished product. I painted this section here. I taped it off right here. Taped it off right there. And I painted all the way around. I also taped off these things. Alright? But you can see, if you get it in the light, you can definitely tell that there is an area there that has been tampered with. But that being said, and you can see the caps. There's one of them. You can see the other one barely down in there. But if you feel inside there with your hand, which is very difficult to do, it's not restrictive very much at all. I think this is a good alternative to the Air-Aid breather that they have that doesn't have this big cancerous growth, I like to call it, on the front of it. But I am really thoroughly pleased with this right here. You don't look at it real close, you could almost think that it came from the factory like this. So I'm pretty happy with it. I hope this inspired somebody. Thank you very much. Okay, we are about to do a startup. Let you listen to my car before I install this modified intake tube. Okay, so here we go. Maybe a difference in sound, maybe not, but we're gonna give it a shot. There's the factory intake tube. Yeah, I know. I'm dirty under here. Alright, here is a startup of the modified intake tube. Like I said, don't know if it's going to make a difference in the sound. Let's see. Yep, can't tell a difference at all. I don't know why in the world they even put this thing. Extra weight. There it is, it's running. I'd say it's a success. Hope it makes a difference when you're driving. Thanks for watching.